Project Zomboid is not an easy game, especially if it's your first time playing. The first time I played, I also had considerable trouble figuring out what to do. Project Zomboid is complex, and that's partly the reason why we play it. The harder the game is, the more rewarding it is to become good at it. With that being said, here are some of the most important things I wish I knew before I started playing this game. Number 1. Your character will be faster than zombies by default. If you're not playing with sprinters, then you can simply walk and zombies won't be able to get to you. The most important part about this is to not panic. Make sure to keep yourself zoomed out so you can see any incoming zombies and just keep them behind you. In the Zomboid community, this is most often referred to as kiting. This is a term that's used in many games, but here it's pretty much essential. Another thing to remember about kiting is that you can actually use fences to slow down zombies. Just be careful not to let them lunge and make you trip. The easiest way to get rid of a horde if you're kiting them is with a fence and some sort of wooded area. If you run past the fence while sprinting, you can leap over it. This is a lot faster than the zombies. Run into the woods to break line of sight, and soon enough they'll forget about you. Number 2. Fences in combat. Fences in Project Zomboid are often overlooked because they are actually one of the strongest weapons. The main strategy for fence fighting is going to be leading a couple of zombies over, having them jump over, and while they're on the floor, you're going to hit them. I wouldn't suggest doing this unarmed, as the foot hitbox can be kinda janky and sometimes it won't hit them. This is best performed with a weapon. If you do have a weapon and you find yourself fence fighting, hold the Alt key before you attack. This makes your character target zombies on the ground as opposed to the ones standing up, which means there's a lower chance you'll whiff and end up getting scratched on the foot. Number 3. The door flash. Let's say you've just entered a new house. The best way to check rooms for zombies is with this technique. Door flashing just consists of opening and closing a door very fast, essentially letting you know what's behind it without having a chance of getting bitten. If there is a zombie waiting behind the door, they'll get activated, but they won't have the chance to attack you since you've already closed the door. And now you know a zombie's behind there, so you can just attack them next time. Number 4. Weapon selection. One of the easiest ways to get killed in Zomboid is to walk around unarmed. Now, the weapon you pick truly comes down to personal preference, but personally, I like sharp weapons the most. This includes everything from knives to axes to machetes, whereas blunt weapons are things such as hammers, baseball bats, and crowbars. The main difference between the two is that blunt weapons will not damage clothing, while sharp weapons will. However, while a baseball bat might grant you a intact condition police vest from a policeman zombie, it will also do a lot less damage than a fire axe would, even at low skill. This is a perfect segue into number 5, which is the head hitbox. Now, when you down a zombie, obviously hitting the legs wouldn't do the same damage as hitting the head, and it does not. In Project Zomboid, wherever you hit them actually has a lot of importance. For example, if I stomp on this zombie's legs enough times, he won't die, but when he does get back up, he's turned into a crawler. crawlers are usually not a big problem, mainly due to their speed. They're so slow that for the most part you can just ignore them and you don't really have to worry about them after that. If you do create a crawler mid-combat, you do have to be a little bit careful to make sure it doesn't grab your feet while you're kiting other zombies. The head hitbox also plays an important role in fence fighting. If you can position yourself in a way that lets you hit the zombie's head instantly as soon as they crawl over, there's a good chance you'll take them out in one shot. Number 6. Horde Control. Horde Control is the act of kiting around zombies in specific ways that ensure you won't get surrounded, swarmed, and killed by a horde. Horde Control will generally incorporate multiple elements that we've discussed previously, such as just walking away to regain some stamina. Horde Control depends heavily on your skills and traits. For example, players who prefer to take strength over fitness should probably consider using larger weapons. Fire axes, baseball bats, crowbars. Most two-handed weapons are better if you have high strength. However, if you picked more fitness, then I would suggest you try out some smaller weapons, primarily hand axes and knives, as they cost a lot less stamina to use. And the longer you can stay in the fight, the better. Now, the strategies for Horde Control generally just boil down to keeping them in a straight line. You want to be fighting one zombie at a time, since every time you attack, your character will be slowed down for a short amount of time. The last thing you want is to be caught by another zombie while you're attacking the other. So, my favorite strategy is to maybe attack once or twice, then turn around, walk a bit away, and wait for them to get in line once again. In my opinion, the most important aspect of Horde Control is staying calm. Especially if it's starting to look like there's more zombies than you can handle, or if you're starting to get tired and can't attack anymore. For example, if you run out of stamina and there's a fence nearby, you can easily just walk away. In fact, I would highly suggest you walk away from most hordes until your character has either enough strength and fitness to take out a horde, or you have good enough weapons. As in fact, the best strategy is quite often just to not fight. The second most important aspect of Horde Control is being aware of the situation. I suggest you play zoomed out for the most part and frequently turn around to make sure there's not more zombies coming in. Now, there are still some situations where Horde Control just isn't viable. Maybe you're in West Point and there's just too many zombies for you to fight off. This is where I think you should employ Zomboid's strongest strategy. Number 7. Not worth it. There's many situations where you should just leave. Project Zomboid's map is huge, and even if you missed out on a generator because there was a massive horde outside, I'd rather miss out on a generator than my life. Due to the size of the map, it's almost impossible that a certain item will only spawn once. Whatever it is you wanted, you'll probably find somewhere else. So don't risk it. One of the things that you should know as soon as possible is that if you can see them, there's a chance they can see you. Unlike the average run-and-gun survival game, a lot of Project Zomboid's strategy is just don't get caught. That's why number 8 is going to be your survival sense. Now, survival sense means a lot of things. For example, entering a house and closing all the curtains so that zombies can't see you. Or trying to find clothing that gives you more protection. In my opinion, it can also apply to knowing which houses are worth looting. The easiest way to find yourself buildings of value is through your map. if you're playing with the map activated, of course. When you use your map, you're going to see that certain buildings are in different colors. For example, blue buildings are going to be community services. This encompasses everything from churches to schools to elderly homes to police stations. Quite often they're worth checking out. In green, you're going to see retail and commercial buildings. This pretty much just means stores. This is usually where you're going to find materials and food. Black buildings are going to be industrial buildings. This could mean factories, warehouses, and even the used storage. This orangish color is going to be residential houses. These are always going to be living houses. Yellow is going to be restaurants and entertainment. So basically, in yellow buildings, you're going to either find food or some useless garbage you don't want. Buildings marked in bright blue are hospitality. For example, hotels. Not to be confused with hospitals, which will show up on your map as this weird pinkish color. Number 9. Knowing where to spawn. Without mods, Project Zomboid will have 4 available spawn cities: Riverside, Muldrow, Rosewood, and West Point. Now, Riverside is the second smallest city and the easiest, with the lowest amount of zombies around and pretty decent base locations. It can get pretty boring after a while since it's so easy, but it's a good place for starters. The second easiest city, in my opinion, is going to be Muldrow, probably only because I'm used to it. It's much larger than Riverside and Rosewood, but in my opinion it just has really good spots. For example, the large warehouse near the top is an incredible base location. Number 3 is Rosewood. I think Rosewood is going to be harder than Muldrow because it's just so small. Everything's packed together and there really isn't a lot of space to run to if things go wrong. Additionally, there's very few resources here, and after you've looted all the main stores, you're kinda out of luck for everything else. Rosewood is kind of in the middle of nowhere, so you're gonna have to either drive or walk quite a long ways to the nearest city. The hardest city from the main 4 is West Point. It's big, there's a lot of zombies, and most resources are focused in 1 or 2 places that are often swarming with zombies. However, if you spawn in West Point, you have a good chance to go to Louisville via the highway. Number 10. Life and Living TV channel. The Life and Living TV channel is one of the most overpowered broken things in Project Zomboid. Essentially, every day for the first week or 2, at these hours, you can tune into Life and Living on any television and get a ton of XP for a random skill depending on what's playing. Life and Living is really good because it can grant you XP and skills that are pretty hard to level up, such as foraging, cooking, and carpentry. The last topic we'll be touching on is going to be my preferred scenario. Now, upon starting a new game, you can pick between one of the 3 pre-made play styles, but I much prefer my own. The first thing we're gonna do is open up the Zombie Lore tab. In here, we're really only going to change one thing. We're going to make it so that the transmission is set to saliva only. This means that zombies can only zombify you by biting you. As with the other presets, there's a small chance of getting infected just from a scratch. Next, we click Advanced Zombie Options and we're going to change the following. We'll leave Population Multiplier, but we'll change Population Start Multiplier to 0.35 or something along those values. Population Peak Multiplier can stay the same. What this means is that zombies are going to start off in smaller numbers and will become much more problematic as time passes. We are also going to set respawn hours to 0, because I really don't like zombies respawning in places I already cleared out. Now all that's left to do is to save this preset. You can name it whatever you want as long as you remember what it's called. With these 10 brand new tips at your disposal, you should now find yourself hopefully surviving at least a little bit longer. And if you didn't play the tutorial, you can cure yourself by pressing Q.